I mean, unfortunately, I've been out to Peru, and that had helped out a lot, kind of, balance the way that I was thinking. So
yeah, so I heard a story on that, and I don't know if I heard you say in an interview, or maybe was it or something you done, and didn't you see like a or something in the and then you ended up having the what was called. Is that true, or have I just read true. That on some fucking Twitter thread?
No, 100%. That is. It's almost like the identity you've been building, you've been growing into your whole life. All of a sudden, then it's just gone, and I'm just a guy in Vegas hanging out. Right, we're on. We're joined by the one and only Dan Hardy and his lovely wife Veronica. Guy, just to kickstart it, what are you doing in Wales? Deep in the valley. Deep in the valley. We're here for the Emma tournament, the Four Nations. So the English Mixed Martial Arts Association have put this Four Nations tournament on over the past few days. Starts Friday afternoon, right? Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. 186 fighters across 3 days, and PFL are supporting it, put money towards it, and we've got something else to announce on Sunday when we start, giving medals out and stuff. So lots going on. News has broke we signed Chanel Dyer today, so she'll be coming down visiting everybody. But yeah, we just had to come down for the event. Veronica's going to be refereeing as well.
Oh, nice. It's funny you should mention Chanel, because nothing but just mad timing. I was led in the house last night, and we couldn't get something to work on the telly, so I was just scrolling through Sky, and the Good Fight documentary was on, and it was like episode 4. So I was like, a couple of boys said, and then I'm going to go back and watch it. So I watched the first 2 episodes, and then Chanel is on there, isn't she? So I followed her on Instagram. And then I seen this morning that she signed with the PFL or PFL Europe, is it?
PFL Europe,
so, well done to her. Are you here with the PFL, or are you just here to help with the running of the tournament?
Yeah, I'm just kind of here in a few different ways, really. I'm one of the directors of the English Mixed Martial Arts Association, so I've got some responsibility to the event, but honestly, the team have done such a good job. I've had very little to do to help out with it, really. I'll be here to, scout talent and meet some people and shake some hands and, hand out a couple of checks, perhaps. I just couldn't miss it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is ultimately where the future of the sport is right now in the the UK. So I need to make sure I'm keeping my eye on these kids coming through.
Go on.
So this isn't going to be out till next week. So can you tell us the announcement, or are we going to be kept in the dark?
Yeah, of course. Okay, yeah. So PFL Europe have donated money to the English Mixed Martial Arts Association. I think to the sum of £5,000, which will go a long way to us putting on these events, because people don't realise these events. I mean, we charge like a nominal entry fee of like 15 quid or something, but the event still costs £23,000 to put it on. People don't understand. So PFL have donated some money, but we're also doing the PFL Prospects Grant as well, which is £1,000 to a couple of the promising young fighters that we see that are maybe not ready to sign with the PFL or sign with another organisation, but have got the promise they could do with a bit of cash to support them in their amateur journey. And, that's something else I want to be doing with the PFL, trying to help the grassroots move along, yeah.
That's big for amateur fighters as well, because obviously these tournaments, having done one or two myself, but they actually cost, people don't realise, I don't think, that they actually cost the fighter money to do, and that's just a tournament, let alone like the training camp and stuff like that, and obviously they don't get paid, so to support them and give them a bit of money to build this, because £1,000 will go a long way for an amateur fighter.
Goes a long way, yeah. I remember, back in the day, I was always paying off my credit card to put money back on it so I could travel and train, and, being a pro for the first 20 fights was expensive, back in the day. And it is, these fights have to invest in themselves, hotel rooms and travel and all those kind of things, but the value of experience that you get from these things, I mean, you'll speak to it better than anybody else, to be able to step into a cage with shin guards and bumper gloves on, and to be able to, compete in mixed martial arts before it goes on your pro record, it just wasn't an option. Before I was a pro, it was KSBO, knockdown sport budo, and it was 1 5-minute round, no headshots on a mat in a sports hall, and it was nothing like MMA really, And I was a terrible grappler, so it just didn't suit me. I couldn't hit anybody in the head.
I remember going to the amateur shows years ago to watch my dad fight, and there would be like 5 different rule sets. You would have like amateur, which was no headshot. Then you'd have semi-pro, which was headshot standing. Then you would have what was called NSAC, which is amateur MMA now. Then you would have B-class pro, which was pro with no elbows and no knees, and then you'd have pro, and you get lost. They're like, you'd be thinking, what fight is this now? But it was just, it's mad how far I've come, because like it was only probably 10, 12, 15 years ago that maybe over in Eberville Leisure Centre there would be a type of show like that. And now obviously there's a show that's ultimately going to decide who the best amateurs in the UK are. And I know there's a lot of boys from our gym doing it, but even there's so many good prospects coming from all over the country. Is there any you've got your eye on, or that you know of before the weekend? So I know we're going to be out after, but is there any you've got your eye on prior to the tournament starting?
Yeah, there's a couple I've got my eye on particularly. I'm not going to give any names out because I don't want to, influence future decisions in any way. We're going to see how the tournament goes this weekend, but like my plan for this weekend is to give out a couple of the grants to some of the young fighters, but also to find some fighters that want to be on the PFL card in Dublin in December. And I don't mind whether they're amateur or pro. I want to sign some of the young talent that have maybe not got an experience on a stage like that. I mean, the Dublin card's going to be insane because it's the championships. We'll be giving out $100,000 and belts, and there'll be some really, really good fights on that card. So to be on an undercard for that is,
it's going to be an amateur card on that as well.
There'll be amateur fights on there. So we've had Biagio Ali Walsh fighting in the US, and he's still fighting amateur at the moment, grandson of Muhammad Ali.
That's right. Yeah, I've seen a little Instagram.
He's just about ready to turn pro, but he's like every time he has a fight, I speak to him and he's like, oh yeah, but I need to work on this and I need to do that, and like he's a real perfectionist, and I don't mind people wanting to stay amateur for a bit and put them on a PFL card, put them on an undercard and give them that feel of a walkout before they start putting marks on their pro record.
Yeah, I think that's great for them, and building up in the sport, 100%.
That's it.
You're obviously you coach Veronica as well. I remember you saying in London how critical he is of your your fighting. Are you going to be the same with your refereeing and your judging? Are you going to be critiquing her, or has she got a free pass as it's her first one?
I think she's going to do a really good job. I'll be there if I can help out, but she'll do a fantastic job. She did Mark Goddard's judging and training and refereeing course, and she you had a few practice runs at that, and the thing is, when you watch MMA as much as we do, and when you train and compete as much as we have, you kind of know, don't you? You know what I mean? You kind of feel the flow of the fight. You can read the fighters in there and know when you need to step in and look after them, or when they're trying to get away with something they shouldn't. We can sense that kind of stuff.
Because we've done it all ourselves. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel the pressure on that? Is there like a pressure to that that's different to fighting?
Well, a little bit more for refereeing than I think for judging. Because I remember I went with you to a Cage Warriors, and it was during the time that I didn't know if I was going to compete again. So like everything MMA for me felt like just so much. There's so much pressure. Just stepping in there felt crazy, and it was an odd feeling. But I remember one of the referees was going to step into the cage, and I was just feeling nervous for them. I was like, oh my God, if I was in that position, what would I do? And I'm like, dude, you fought in there, like, chill. But honestly, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'd be the same, mind. I think I'd be a lot more nervous to ref a fight than to actually fight a fight, because...
Yeah. Do you think you'd be held to a higher standard, like,
yeah, I think so. Because if something goes wrong and the ref, like, messes it up, everyone instantly blames the ref. No one considers, like, you had to think on the fly and make a decision. It's just like, ref shit, can get him out of there. Even people like Mark Goddard, as good as he is, like you see times online where people are giving him stick, and it's like, the best ref on the planet, and you on Twitter saying he's wrong, and it's like, it is a tough job. It's an unforgiving job as well, because you do a good job. Not many people really like acknowledge that you've done a good job, and the minute you do something wrong, I feel like people are just quick to jump on your back.
Absolutely. I mean, look at Herb Dean. Like, he's refereed me before. He's refereed teammates of mine and stuff, and he's done a good job. But the one time that he didn't, I was on his case, and people remember him and remember me for it. You know what I mean? But it is a difficult job, and same thing with judging as well. I mean, Mark Goddard's had a couple of fights where, like the Colby Covington one against Usman, people complain about that, and the stoppage of Adesanya against Pereira. But the other thing that we have to remember is that these, like, especially when people say the fight was stopped a little early, like, we have to give the referees the benefit of the doubt that they can look in that fighter's eyes and see whether they're there or not. You know what I mean? And if I'm on the outside of the cage and I can see in the fighter's eyes they're not there, that's when I'm going to be on the referee's case, because I feel like they're closer than the action than me. Yeah. But it is a really difficult job. And judging as well. because it's such an open forum. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many judges that are certain that they know how to judge a fight, but it's nowhere near the judging criteria anymore because it changed, you know, so it's a difficult job.
Just to jump back on Veronica, you obviously had a massive win a couple of months ago in UFC London, first one for a long time. I know you had a couple of health issues and stuff like that. It was kind of a fight as well that, like you said yourself, they kind of almost put you in there to lose, and you went in there and absolutely blew her away. How did it feel to be back and to put on such a good performance? Because just say it how it is, Dan in the corner as well. You know what I mean? There was a little, you know, there was a little bit of not bad feeling, but you know what, people talk and assume things. So how did it feel to just go in there and put on that type of show?
It felt almost like movie-like, especially because I had initially come to the UK to train MMA because I was just like, I just want to, I want to do real fighting and just put everything together. And I had come to the UK to train with Dan, but he wasn't here. And then to
good start.
The whole full circle of having like health issues and everything, and then being back, and the first fight back being in the O2 with Dan in my corner, and then we just gotten married as well. So the whole thing just seemed like someone scripted this for sure. For sure they have. It was almost like too much to even digest, because I was just like, just deal with what's in front of you. Just deal with what's in front of you. And it took me about like 2-3 weeks to like fully go, damn, that was awesome.
It was a hell of a performance. And I tell you one thing that made me laugh, like, you got the MMA Twitter and you see like these mythical fighters, and it was like, they say with Volkanovski, he's like, what's the best base for elite MMA? He's like, rugby league now, and it's like someone probably the best base to be an elite level female MMA fighter is to marry Dan Hardy.
Dude, did you hear DC? DC in the corner was like, best thing she did was use her husband. I was watching back, I was like, yo,
it was all tactical from the start. She's like, I'm going to go to the UK, I'm going to marry Dan Hardy and become an elite level fighter.
I'm just part of a game plan for a fight ultimately, right?
As long as you're both happy, that's the main thing.
As soon as she retires, Dan, you're gone. Obviously, I've known you a long time, Dan, and every now and then the fanboy in me comes out a little bit, although I try and reel it in as much as I can. So I've got to ask you, obviously, you was the first UK fighter to fight for a UFC title. Can you just talk a little bit about your initial UFC run and just touch on what it was like to do the 25 minutes with someone like GSP, who many people consider one of the greatest of all, if not the greatest of all time? Because obviously not a lot of people give that as much respect, I don't think, as it should deserve, because you kind of done it, you get the old say, we done it before it was cool. Like, you fought for a UFC title before it was cool. No one over here probably knew what it was, but it doesn't take away the fact that this is as big of an achievement as it is, and the fact that he was in there with one of the best ever. So can you just touch on that a little bit for us, how it came about, the initial signing to the UFC, and how you kind of went from like the British guy to just being this ultra bad guy with a red Mohican going in there to take out the golden goose?
Yeah, it was quite quick, to be honest. I mean, I think, if I remember right, I was 19 and 6 when I joined the UFC, and my first fight was Akihiro Gono, who was a Pride vet. He had a win over Musashi and Hector Lombard, and I was like, okay, like, they're going to throw me in at the deep end every time. So he was my first fight, UFC 89. I beat him by a split decision because he was real tricky. Then I was co-main event O2 Arena against Rory Markham. Big puncher, never been the distance. Caught him with a left hook, knocked him out. Then the big trash talk against Marcus Davis. That was the next one, UFC 99. He hated me, hated me. And I just kind of used it against him. And that's when I really used my trash talking more than anything else in the UFC, I think. And after beating him, that was another close fight, split decision. I got Mike Swick, and initially I was signed up to fight Don Young Kim at UFC 105, which, as you remember, would have been an absolute nightmare. He was a strong grappler. He was on people's back the whole time, and I got a call about, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks before the event, and Joe Silva, he was like, I got bad news. Don Young Kim's got a knee injury. He's like, okay, I've got some good news. Do you want a number one contenders fight? I'm like, yeah, of course. He's like, Mike Swick's number one contenders, and he'll take the fight. I'm like, yep, great, sounds good. Send me a new contract, I'm off to the gym. And I hung up the phone, and he called me back like 2 minutes later. He was like, you just hung up the phone. You didn't ask for more money. I honestly didn't even think about it. And he went, right, okay, I'm going to send you a new contract as well. So they bumped me up. I got 20 and 20 for Mike Swick. And then I fought GSP.
That's wild.
and then I fought GSP. That was the next fight on my contract, 22 and 22.
It's crazy looking back on it.
I feel like a dumbass, to be honest, thinking back out. But, you know, I was there to fight. I was there for nothing else other than just to be in the cage. And the Mike Swick fight was awesome because, what was it? It was co-main event. I think Bisping was against Dennis Kang on that card. Randy Couture was on it. But it was like people knew what was at stake, you know what I mean? And like it was a tough fight because Swick's really hard to put away. Caught him with a few good shots and had him wobbly a few times, but like by the end of the fight, it was like foregone conclusion. Everyone knew that I won and knew what was coming. And then GSP gets in the cage, and that was really cool. And then, you know, pretty much I couldn't wait to start training camp. So I did a 14-week training camp for that one. Just too much.
Yeah.
Way too much. I didn't have any real, like, I didn't have the facilities that I needed, you know, the coaches and that kind of stuff. I had my Thai boxing coach, Steve Papp, who was vicious, was trying to tell me to throw knees to the head on the bottom in the fight, the world title fight. I had my friend Alder from 10th Planet, who was a brown belt at the time. And, like, looking back at him, I'm like, Alder, you're against Faraz and Danaher and GSP. I'm like, do what you can, my friend. Yeah. But yeah, they were just good people. People I needed around me that I could rely on. And you just give everything you've got, don't you? That's all it is. That's all.
Was it obviously at the time? Looking back now, obviously George did what he did, but at the time, was you looking at him like, as if this is GSP? I'm fighting GSP, or was it kind of like because you was so high on yourself as well because you've been on such a good run? Like, no, I'm just gonna go in and try and blow him away kind of thing, or was it a little bit of like that starstruckness where this is GSP? Because he was probably the first, I know we talk about McGregor, but he was probably the first like real megastar, wasn't he, in the sport, especially in Canada and the US. Yeah. He was kind of like one of the first guys, him and Chuck Liddell, that were like known worldwide then. Yeah. So did you feel like, I don't know, did you feel a little bit like, I mean, this is GSP, or was it just kind of like, this is just another fight, I'm going to go in there and do what I can do?
It was a little bit like, oh, okay, this is GSP, but not in like a starstruck sense, because I still felt like he was my opponent and I was there to beat him. But certainly I looked at him, I'm like, okay, this is GSP, and it's like I'm looking at the moments and the margins where he makes a mistake where I can catch him with something. And the thing I'd told myself all the way through training camp is I'd watched everybody else fight him and they were gun shy. They were waiting to throw the perfect punch because they knew he was going to level change and they might only get one shot per round. Yeah. And I found myself doing the same thing. It was really frustrating. But, you know, it was, I knew what I was up against. I mean, the odds were ridiculous by the time I got in there. I was like plus 1,300 underdog or something. So that took some pressure off. And I know how stubborn and difficult I can be. And I knew that no matter what he did, like submissions-wise, if he was going to choke me, I was going to go to sleep. If he was going to try and break something, he was going to break it, and I was going to hit him with another limb. You know, that was my mentality going into it. Although I had the respect for him that he deserved, I had a complete disrespect for the odds and the opinions of people that I didn't deserve to be in there. And that's why, you know, when he's trying to twist my arm off, I'm like, just break it. I'm not giving everyone the satisfaction.
I was going to say, it wasn't just mentality, it was actually put into practice. Like fully locked in a arm. I was like, yeah, he's going to have to break it because he's not going to tap.
I was fortunate that he was just doing a couple of things slightly wrong, you know, and what was funny as well is after the fight, because I was sharing a dressing room with Frank Mir, and I went back to my dressing room after the fight, and he was like, yeah, GSP's just been in his dressing room, and he was like, someone was putting his jacket on and doing his tie, and at the same time he's like, asking Danaher, he's like, well, what was going wrong with the armbar? And like they were like drilling the Kimura on the floor in his dressing room
straight after the fight.
Yeah.
Other than obviously like the armbar and stuff, is there anything you remember from the fight that stood out to you where you kind of thought like, no, I used an opportunity, or was it kind of just like a fight where everything's a blur and you don't think about it till afterwards?
There was a lot of the feeling was just kind of, it was just a blur, but the thing that I remember standing out to me specifically in the fight is that, like, I didn't feel like he was like strengthening me. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't using physicality to boss me around. He was just very, very slick. Like at any point when he level changed and he was in on a takedown, if I gave him even a minor bit of resistance, he would switch it, and then he would switch it. He was flowing from one thing to another. And I'd not experienced someone that was that smooth in that range before. It was just so easy for him to transition. And that's kind of when I realized that, you know, the value of, I don't know, I guess up to that point, I felt like, to a point, wrestling was a little bit putting it on people. And I don't feel like he put it on me. I felt like he took it away from me. Yeah. You know?
You've obviously, so you was at the pinnacle back then. You've been at and around UFC cards since, obviously as a commentator, cornering. What's the main difference? Is there any difference in how it's kind of run, or what goes on behind the scenes, or were they pretty bang on back then as well?
You know, when I first signed with the UFC, was it 2008? 2008, we had a good office in London, and we had a bunch of people working for the UFC over here, and like it was really strong. Like UFC Europe back in the day was really strong, and it was easier for me because I always had something to say for myself, and they were very good at connecting me with the media and keeping me busy. You know, I was going out to like military bases and stuff, and I loved all that kind of stuff, and they did a really good job of kind of, you know, making sure that the UFC was kind of moving into loads of different areas of you know, pop culture, and I felt like the fighters were far more in the forefront back then as well. You know, they were far more accessible to the media, but the problem was most of the questions were, well, isn't this too dangerous? And should we stop this? You know, is like. So it wasn't really like I'm a little bit envious of you guys now, because people actually ask you questions about your fight. You know, they ask you questions about your technique and your training camp instead of, should this be legal? You know, oh, you gonna hold him down and elbow him in the head? That's, you know. So there was a lot of that back in 2008, 2010. Like I had a lot of interviews which kind of like they went awry because like the questions they were asking me were just poorly researched.
It was more of like an interview to defend MMA rather than to promote yourself.
Yes, exactly that. Which is probably one of the reasons why I ended up being an ambassador for UFC Europe, because they'd kind of seen me do it over and over again, like unintentionally. But that was a little bit frustrating, because ultimately, you know, aside from the money and the victories and everything, I just wanted to be recognised for like working my ass off and being a decent martial artist. That was really all it was about for me. And like I felt constantly like I was like reinforcing what the sport's about and why we should exist, which was a little frustrating. It's nice now to see it far more commonplace and far more accepted. But then I don't know, as the fighters get as much opportunity to speak for themselves as we used to back in the day, and I think it's because people are more familiar with it now. It's like, well, you know, you can all say the same thing because we've asked 100 fighters already now, and training camp's been the best one of your life, and you're going to murder your opponent, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every now and then you get someone, and I think this is why Darren Till did so well. He's like, he would go, yeah, I'm terrified. Look at him. Like, you know what I mean? It gave the media something different.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they've gone from having no idea to now being a little bit too saturated. So the industry's changed.
Like a Sean Strickland, isn't it? Someone like him will always get a headline because he's saying stuff that no one else is going to say. Did you see him on Joe Rogan the other day?
I haven't watched it yet.
It's mental, man.
It's fucking mad 2 hours. But it's kind of like, I know, I mean, the media kind of set you up now so that they want you to say something they can get an headline out of, rather than, I suppose, like you said, back in the day, if they were genuinely clued up, it was a good chance. I remember reading interviews in school on like fucking on Google and on Sherdog and stuff like that in my break, and you would have a genuine chance to find out about the fighter. Whereas now it's kind of like they just teeing you up, trying to get like you to chuck a sneaky dig out, or they'll tee Strickland up for him to go off on a 10-minute rant about some bonkers. Was you? Can you remember watching him when he was younger, when he was fighting for the title and stuff like that?
Yeah. I remember. He was just awesome to watch. I just always felt like he really wanted to beat the crap out of the other guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really see that. Sometimes I see fights and people are trying to outscore their opponent or trying to find ways to win. And he was just always trying to find ways to just hurt them.
Yeah.
And that was something to me that was like, whoa. Because it wasn't about having like a record or anything. It was about just fighting and and being there in your face, and just as a martial artist, I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
It was proper, like, you had the persona, didn't you? It was because Bisping was like the British bad guy as well, but it was you did it in different ways, like calling Bruce Buffer during the intro, and like, you'll guarantee you, if here comes the fucking stare off, the outlaw bandana on straight in the face. It was kind of like Bisping was like the trash talking Brit, and you was more of like you said, I think he wants to kill him. Like, he generally wants to kill him. You've obviously retired or haven't fought for a long time, but I see on Instagram, and I think everyone sees you train pretty regularly, you're coaching. I know you was meant to have a boxing fight back. Was it last year or the year before against Diego, I think it was. Yep. Do you still get the urge now to have one more or two more or three more?
All the time, yeah.
And do you think that there's that chance that you might actually have one?
You know, I don't know. It was frustrating last year because, I mean, you know, Tyron Woodley's had a couple of contracts with my name on for boxing, and they never got signed. He just went quiet. Then Diego got a contract and he signed it, and then the event was postponed. And then when the event was reorganized, that fight was cancelled because we weren't boxers. That was a bit frustrating. So like I'd started training a few times to compete, but nothing came of it. So I just kind of, you know, when Veronica started training camp, I just kind of put all that thinking to one side, because, you know, of course she's the focus. She's the one that's got the potential to be a UFC champ. My time for that has definitely passed. But if an opportunity is put in front of me, they're like, hey, do you want to fight this guy on this date? And I feel like the person's actually going to show up, absolutely I'll fight. You know, it's just, it'd be a selfish decision, of course, because, you know, I would have to focus on myself, but there's nothing like it. There's just no adrenaline rush like it. You know, the single-mindedness. Like that's what I found last week, because obviously we were in Berlin for the PFL Europe show. And I was running around all week doing 100 different things. You know, we're setting up sauna pods and moving mats over, and, you know, it was just a wild week. And every now and then I'd think to myself, God, I wish I was just fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier to be completely single-minded, focused on one thing. Everything about every day is about that one thing, and it was just a lifestyle that suited me. So I think I miss more than anything the single-mindedness of it.
I think you can't explain it, can you, unless you've actually done it yourself, the feeling and it's going to sound bad saying this, but it's what I imagine being like an heroin addict is like. You're constantly chasing that, right? Like, you have your fight, you're on top of the world for a week, and then you're just kind of like, right, what's next?
Yeah, now what?
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's so short-lived, that buzz, and it's like, I say that people, like, you know, and you probably have it as well, and you do, people are like, well, what's it like to walk to the cage? And you're like, unless you've done it, I can't put it into words. You seem like a weight cut. Oh, what are you thinking doing a weight cut? And unless you've like had that feeling, I can't really put it into words. So, but what's worse, like, cornering her or fighting yourself? And how did you? Because was that your first time cornering?
First time cornering Veronica.
How was it?
You know, honestly, it was. I mean, the whole process was quite easy because of how hard she works and how well she listens. I mean, I'd cornered before, you know, I've cornered, you know, I cornered Andre Winner, I cornered Mac Danzig in the UFC, cornered Roy Nelson. You know what I mean? It's like I've done it a few times, but at no point was it as close to me as it was then. And every time I'm cornering somebody, of course I want them to win. I'm doing everything I can to help them out. But this was a different thing entirely. And I can only imagine it would. I mean, of course, you know, you're having your dad in the corner. I can't imagine how he would feel. I see how he feels when you're fighting. I look in his face, and
it's not hard, is it?
no, but you know, it's obviously similar, but not the same. And you know, the responsibility as well of making sure that she's ready for it, just like your dad has to make sure you're ready for your fights. There's a pressure that falls on me. Like, I've got to make sure that she's got everything she needs. So like all the way through training camp, I kept saying the same thing. Like, I'm not training her to be cornered. I'm training her to know, so I don't need to be there. Because, like, you're going to go back to the fight week situation. I didn't know how difficult they were going to be for me. I mean, they basically stopped me doing everything aside from cornering, like official weigh-ins and everything. So I didn't know how far they were going to take it and how difficult they were going to be. And I didn't want the idea of her walking out to the octagon with me not being there, and all of a sudden she's feeling like she's not prepared. Because, like, she doesn't need me there. you know, to scream when she lands a clean head kick. She don't need me there for that. She knows what she's doing. And my voice is in her head so much that when she makes a mistake in a fight, I don't need to say it from the corner because she'll hear me say it. You know what I mean? Like, she'll hear it in her head because that's the way that we train. So stressful in a very, very different kind of way to I've ever experienced, but also much, much easier given the fact that she listens so well and she learns so quickly.
On the flip side, was it much? How did you feel? Obviously, your first one having him in the corner. Was it like they're saying on Twitter? Was it the cheat? Was it like having a cheat code? Marion Dan Hardy is the key success to being a UFC fighter.
DC was bright. No, I mean, it was a bit of both. Like, I was a bit nervous because obviously I was coming from like a lot of losses and just constantly failing and not really knowing why, because I was like, I'm training hard. Like, I show up and I listen and it's just not making sense to me. And now I have Dan Hardy, I was a bit like, wow, if I mess this up, now it's not just me that I'm messing up. It's his image that doesn't look great as well. And I know that he just kept saying, no, it doesn't matter. It's not like that and stuff. And even his family like brought it up because they saw that I was a bit distressed by it. But at the same time, it was also in times where something is so chaotic, like an arena filled with people and just the whole environment, which is very chaotic, I would just look at him and there would be some sort of homeness to it. So it would help me relax in a certain type of way. Like, okay, we've drilled this. And if you, in my head, I'm like, if you give Dan this much credit and, you know, merit for everything that he's done, then also give him that for him having trained you well enough to be here, because he loves you. He's not going to let you step in here unless you're ready. And it was kind of battling that and being off for so long, but knowing that he wouldn't let me be in there unless he knew that I was ready. And, you know, he probably knows the way like my opponent takes like a step every morning. Probably has like her whole routine. So that kind of gave me some sense of just calmness.
Yeah. I can relate so much like to what you're saying, because I feel very similar with my dad in the terms of before the fight, he's a bag of nerves. I can't even look at him a lot of the time in the change room because I can see the worry and the distress. Because like that's why I've got to take Carl and him, because I can see, you know, like if it was just me and him, I can't imagine like the warm up would probably be shocking, because he's nervous for me and I'm looking at him and he's nervous and that's making me get worked up. But at the same time, it's like if he said to me, "Oh, I can't make this one," I think I would just go into a meltdown and a state of panic, because I would be like, it's all. For me, it's a little bit different because all I've had like 30 fights and he's been there for every one. But I would be this. I'd be like, if he can't do it, I can't do it. So if he's not there, I'm not. If he said to me tomorrow, I can't do this no more, I'm knocking on the head, I'd be like, yeah, fucking just hand my retirement papers in there, because I'm not going to do it either. And like you said, is that thing of, it's not just your reputation on the line now. It's like I was the same as, you know, I represent his gym, and if anything, being his son is kind of like, well, if anyone's going to be any good and listen and prove what he's saying is right, this should be his son. So it's kind of like if I mess up, it reflects badly on him, and I know it doesn't. And like you said, you losing a fight would never reflect on Dan's reputation. You know, it can happen, but that's not how we work in the end. I know I can just relate so much and so clearly to what you're saying, because it's like a different aspect to it. I do sometimes feel like I want to say to people, yeah, but you haven't got to deal with this shit, like, because you just got your normal coaches there, like you haven't got someone with that like family like connection to it. And I'm just like, sometimes I just think it's extra stress, but at the same time, I couldn't do it unless they could do it as well.
But interesting, because I was kind of assessing this the other day. I was talking to somebody else about it, and your dad will be the same, and far more, you know, than I am. But your dad would have started martial arts before MMA was a thing, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I was training martial arts with my coach, he was always training me in case there wasn't anybody there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't training me to corner me in a fight at the weekend. He was training me, if someone attacked me in a club, I'm ready to defend myself. And if he's there, then we're good, because then we're both fighting. But he's not training me to be coached, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to have the same conversation with your dad, because I would imagine he'd have a similar perspective, he's trained you to be the fighter that you are, so he doesn't need to be there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the same for Veronica. Like I wouldn't train her. Like, and I won't name the fighters, but I know fighters that have been at a gym and they've been very good at that gym's technique. Then they move to a different gym and leave that technique behind and pick up something else. So they're not owning what they're learning. They're borrowing it while they're with that coach. And for me, that's not the way martial arts works, because the purpose of martial arts is to defend yourself in a real life situation. And in a real life situation, you're not going to have gloves and a mouth guard and a corner team. So like the mentality of being prepared for it, it should be outside of the coach. Like I should be able to give her the game plan and then step back and watch, because I've trained her to know. And I would imagine your dad's done the same thing for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
very much.
It's a deal with it when there's nobody else there to help you out or corner you. So that was always my mentality. And I think coming from martial arts before MMA also gave me the awareness of, okay, well, here I am in the cage. Here's the corner. This is how I can put them in the corner. This is how I can keep myself out of it. You know, like you watch Bloodsport and he's like pushing the referee at him and throwing salt in his eyes. And like, there was always something you had to think about that was outside of a fair and even regulated competition. So I kind of, when I came into mixed martial arts, it's like, oh, okay, so it's just me and this person then, and you're going to stop it if I get hurt? I'm like, this is
easy.
Yeah.
That's a different way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, I just think it's something that MMA's kind of lost a little bit of, because there are coaches that want their fighters to need them there, you know? Like, and most of the time, the corner teams, we watch it all the time, you're like, what the fuck are you saying to them? This is no use at all. Breathe. Okay, quick, breathe. You're just making the situation worse for them, right? I get too excited. That's my problem.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of teams could learn something from maybe like, you know, like you'll have a gym, you'll do a practice spar, you might do your 3-5s, your minute rest. Do you think a lot of teams could learn something from the coaches treating her the same way? So like when you get in there for your minute, like organising who's going to speak, and like you said, you shouldn't need to tell your fighter, breathe. Like I know straight away when I come back to the corner, I know they're not going to say nothing for the first 20 seconds. They're just going to let me breathe and compose myself, and then they're going to like relay the information. Well, you see some teams, and not like even low level, you see like elite level guys go in there, and you got fucking 4 lunatics just fucking screaming at them for and you can just see they're not listening to a word they're saying. They're trying to drink and trying to work, like calm themselves down. Do you think like people don't focus on that enough as well? Because obviously you've transitioned to a coach now. Do you think that's coaches could learn something from that as well, rather than just the fighter kind of think, right, you need to do this and this because it's your fight? Do you think the coaches need to prepare themselves better for that situation as well?
I think so, and I think coaches coaches need to be adaptable for the fighter that they're cornering as well. You know, like there are a few corners that stand out in my mind. Greg Jackson is really interesting because like he even went through a phase of mimicking people's accents with broken English, like to make people feel more comfortable. Really? Like he would have somebody in the corner from Brazil and he'd go, "Okay, brother," you know, and he'd talk with this like Portuguese cadence. And like I don't even think they recognized he was doing it, but you can see this kind of familiarity kind of wash over them. You know, he does the same thing with John Jones, talks about the waterfall and blah, blah, blah. And then you get the other corners like Renegade and Leon's team, you know, come on, Rocky, you know, just like putting it right into context the way that he needs it. It's different from one person to the next. One of the reasons why the corner was set as it was for Veronica's fight was because we had Jack Young there, who's a very, very promising young fighter, who's got a kind of calm, methodical energy about him all the time, him and his brother. Then we got Jimmy Warled, who's, of course, a veteran, but also very, very experienced as a corner. Really good at just kind of pacing the corner, making sure the information's concise. And then me, just like a just do this, just... So I kind of, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's also important to recognize that sometimes the people in the corner are going to do a better job of getting the information across, which is exactly what Jimmy and Jack were there for, because I didn't know where my emotions were going to be, not only dealing with the environment of it being Veronica's fight, but also back at the UFC, back at the O2, you know what I mean? So I feel definitely like coaches need to pay more attention to their fighters and understand what their fighter needs in that moment, whether they need firing up or calming down or reassuring or berating. Sometimes you're like, dude, what? Get your hands up, you know what I mean? Sometimes you need to give them that. But giving the fighter the same thing, no matter who they are and what the situation is, you just lose an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Could I take you back a bit, Dan, to when, like, your career, obviously you stopped fighting in the UFC. You know, you're talking about fighting now in boxing and doing these other things. Is that because, like, there was an unscratched itch because you had to finish early, or was there anything involved with that?
There's definitely some of that, for sure. I mean, that, you know, the last fight was Matt Brown in California. It would have been amazing, you know. Matt Brown's an animal, and I feel like we would have had a really, really good fight.
I feel like you would now as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, and I'm not against the idea of having that fight. I'd fight Matt Brown today. You know, there was excitement, there was adrenaline, and then I remember sitting in my truck outside the hospital in Vegas, and the fighter was gone, and I'm like, now what? Like, now what? Like, I can't fight unless I have a surgery, and I don't need a surgery, and my doctor in the UK's told me I don't need one, so now I'm gonna like fight on smaller shows and be stuck in Europe, and it was just a weird time. I literally, it's the only time in my life I couldn't walk into an MMA gym, because I would find myself getting angry at people for not training hard, or like, I remember yelling at Andre Winner after a fight once. Now, I've never apologized to him. I probably should, but like I know, like, you know how capable someone is. Like, if I had the skills of Andre Winner, I would have been a UFC champion. That's kind of how I felt when I was watching him compete. I'm like, and he's fighting against someone that he would run through in the gym, but he's kind of coasting. And after the fight, I just yelled at him. I'm like, because I didn't feel like he recognized the opportunity that he had in front of him, and that kind of stayed with me. That's always lingered, because I never got that closure from that last fight. You know.
Can you touch on that a little bit? How that came about? Obviously, you said you were scheduled to fight Matt Brown, and then it was almost kind of like you was told, "This is it." Can you like just go through the full story with that? Because I've heard you speak about it in the past, but it's always kind of like it's a tough one to process, because like when people retire, it's kind of like they dwell on it a little bit, shall I, and they kind of come to the decision, all right, I'll do it then. But like with you was kind of almost in the prime of your career, still old enough to have, well, look at Matt Brown, like how long ago was that? Matt Brown still fighting, and then it's kind of like, no, that's it, shut the book, you're done.
I mean, it's amazing how well Matt Brown's still doing, and, you know, and how much he's put himself through over the years. But I mean, the thing that was frustrating, I suppose, is because I felt like I was ready for that kind of resurgence and get a second run at the title. Because I won 4 fights, I got a title shot, I lost 4 fights, and then it was like, okay, maybe this is the end of my career. Probably the UFC are going to release me after I lost to Anthony Johnson. And, you know, I was kind of thinking that was, like, I was thinking of other things to do. And then they told me they were going to give me another fight. So I called out Chris Lytle. I wanted someone that was going to stand and trade with me. That didn't work out. And I was just like, you know, I was just not in the right place. Like, losing 4 fights in a row is just a really, really difficult place to be. Especially when, you know, as you were saying, like, you don't know sometimes why you're losing, but everyone's calling for you to be released. Like, they want your fucking head on a spike if you lose 3 fights. Like, all right, you know, it's sport. Like, we're unsuccessful, we have to learn. And so I took a bit of time out. I got Ludwig at UFC 146.
Where was that too?
Say that again.
Where was 146 too?
It was at the MGM Grand. That was the heavyweight main card.
Yeah.
They had 5 heavyweight fights on the main card. And that was just so surreal, because it was Ludwig, who I'd loved watching all the way through, fighting in King of the Cage and, you know, kickboxing against Deckers and stuff. Like, Ludwig, it's Dwayne Ludwig. So I really didn't want to fight him and hurt him, but I had no choice. It was, my contract was going to be done if I lost that fight. So I found a little tell in his game. I knew I could pull his rear hand away from his chin if I feinted with my jab. And I'd set that up and I drilled it for a few weeks and I nailed it in the fight and I felt fucking great.
Fucking lovely little
it was
thing.
Just, that was it. But the thing is, like the Roy Markham one, I was expecting to split him with my right hand and run him onto it. But we both bypassed ourselves, and so I caught him with the second shot. So that was like a recalibration in the moment. Whereas Ludwig, I stepped into the cage knowing that shot was going to be the one.
I don't know when you finished with the elbows then.
Yeah.
Some nasty elbows,
he just didn't need to sit up. He should have just stayed where he was. I didn't want to hit him with those elbows. But, when you're in fight mode, you just go. That's why the referees are so important, because if they're not there, I won't stop. And so I won that fight. Then I was drawn up against Sadala in Nottingham. And in hindsight, if I'd have known that was going to be my actual last fight, I could have retired there in my hometown. And it would have been painful because I wasn't ready to call it a day. But the fact that I then started 2013, did the majority of a training camp, got excited for the Matt Brown fight, and then California was one of the only states that require an EKG. Right? So I'd just never needed one before. So I went and got it done, and they were like, "Oh, your heart rate's irregular. You've got 2 heartbeats." So I went back for some more tests a couple of days later, and the guy was like, "So basically, you're going to need an ablation. So we're going to go in your carotid artery and you're in your femoral artery, and we'll go into the heart and we'll find the additional electrical current that's producing the second heartbeat, and we'll burn it. And then you
That's
can
simple
fight,
enough,
right?" But it was like, well, we'll just do this. You'll have a couple of days off, and then you can fight. Right, I'm thinking, well, first of all, imagine someone twisting on your neck with a scar across your carotid. Yeah. Imagine trying to squeeze somebody in a triangle with you. You know what I mean? It just didn't make sense to me. So even if I got the ablation done, I knew that I wasn't going to be fighting on that day. And then speaking to my doctor in the UK, he told me not to do anything. I went out to California to see Lorenzo Fertitta's doctor, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, well, in order to be safe, etc. If you were an Air Force pilot, you'd have to get it done. I'm like, well, I'm not. You know what I mean? I've had 300 fights and nothing's ever happened. So it was just I just felt stuck. I felt lost and I felt stuck. And that's why, Oban reached out to me, because he was going through something similar. Like, it's almost like the identity you've been building, you've been growing into your whole life, all of a sudden then it's just gone. And I'm just a guy in Vegas hanging out at the climbing wall because I don't want to go to the MMA gyms. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just, I just felt lost, like overnight. It was like, now what?
Did you find yourself though through that process? Because years ago I had a job which I used to climb electricity poles, and then I had a seizure and couldn't do that job anymore because it was a high risk job. And that year after that, I was just lost, thinking, what am I going to do in my life? What's the next step? But actually in that process where I found myself, so was that for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the benefit of going through those 4 losses was that I'd already put myself in a mindset where it doesn't matter, I can overcome. So I'd already come through the 4 losses and turned things around. So I was 2 wins back, and I felt like if I get a couple more wins, I'm moving back towards a title shot. So I kind of feel like I dealt with a lot of adversity during the losing streak. But even during the losing streak, it was but I can still keep going. I can still come back to the UK and fight every weekend on an event here just because I love it. But this was actually I just wasn't allowed. Same situation. And it was the feeling of being lost. I just didn't know which way to go. Unfortunately, I've been out to Peru, and that had helped out a lot, kind of, balance the way that I was thinking. So
yeah, so I heard a story on that, and I don't know if I heard you say in an interview. Maybe, so apology if I completely fucking butcher this, but was it ayahuasca or something you done, and didn't you see a wolf or something in the and then you ended up having the syndrome, which was called
Wolf Parkinson White syndrome.
Is that true, or have I just read that on some fucking Twitter thread?
No, 100%. That is. I think I talk about it in my book actually.
That might be a bit where I read it.
So it was when I first got out to Peru, I was looking at as I always do, if I go into a room, there's bookshelves, I want to see what books are on the shelves. And I was looking through this, and it was spirit guides and spirit animals, and I was there for the psychedelic experience, but I didn't know what was going to come with it. You know what I mean? I'd had psychedelic experiences before, but ayahuasca was a very different thing, very different process. And I remember looking at these books, and I'm like, I'm not sure as I'm going to fit in here. I don't know as I'm buying into this spirit guides and spirit animals thing. And then it was we were sitting in the Malacca in the ceremony, and I remember because you're out of it a good portion of the time. You're aware, but you're not. and sometimes you're not physically within your body, you're completely elsewhere. And I remember like kind of opening my eyes. I was leaning up against the wall and I kind of opening my eyes, and I could barely make out other people in the room, but the moonlight was so bright, so I could kind of see the layout of the room. And then there was this dog next to me. Honestly, it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, it's just like a German Shepherd, and I just thought it must be one of the dogs that's a part of the, you know, the commune where I was, and I just started stroking it. And I could literally feel the oil from the fur on my hand. It was just the weirdest thing, but it was there present quite a lot. Like I would see it. There were times when it would get up and it would go over and sit next to a friend of mine, and for me during the ceremony, there was nothing unusual about it. It was there. There was no question. Like I could feel it. I could smell it. I could like, but it was, I don't know. It was just very, very odd. I've seen things and I've felt things, but I've never physically been in contact with something that didn't exist. And it didn't exist. It wasn't there. And that was one of many things, but that was the one that stuck out in my mind. And before I left, I was going back into training camp. And I remember the shaman, he was talking about a wolf, and he was like, see it all the time. Like your way to build your connection, your relationship with it is to see it all the time. Even when you can't see it, see it. So I remember doing runs around Vegas, and I would be chasing this wolf. I would visualize it in front of me, and I would chase it all the time. And it was always like it was like leading me over the next hurdles. And I had the other fight against Sadala, and what you'll see, I do something in the corner with my hands in that right before the fight starts. One palm up, one palm down. The palm down is for the wolf, the palm up is for the bird. And that was like my connection with that space that I was in Peru. And then wolf Parkinson White syndrome. And the other thing that's interesting as well, because I have a book. It's a book about Robin Hood, and the law in the UK is, let me get this right because it's Latin, gerat caput lupinum, which means let his be the head of a wolf. So if you were an outlaw in medieval times, you were considered a wolf head. That's what the slang term was. So if you're an outlaw, you're a wolf head. That's right in my head. It's mad, isn't it? Yeah. So a wolf head, or gerat caput lupinum, is let his be the head of a wolf, which means that because wolves were extinct in the UK, they were killed to extinction because you could be able to pay your taxes with their skins and stuff. So basically, if you were an outlaw, you were treated like a wolf, so you could be killed on sight. And just the whole kind of thing came back full circle, the outlaw and the wolf.
Yeah, and you didn't know none of this.
None of it.
Right,
none of it at all. Like the nickname outlaw came from me being, kicked out of one of the gyms that I was training at because I disagreed with the coach. So when I signed up to the Cage Warriors Forum, I chose the outlaw as my nickname. Just random stuff, do you know what I mean? But it was like, it kind of became a part of who I was, and then the Wolf Parkinson White thing, and it was odd, an odd coincidence for sure.
Do you think it was random, or do you think it's like
deep in me
on purpose?
Yeah. I just feel like that's a bit too big of a coincidence. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with coincidences anymore.
Yeah.
I like to,
a lot of things line up there, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're working your ass off and you're trying your best. You know what I mean? Like when you're focused and you're trying your best, things just kind of work out. I mean, like Conor McGregor always talks about manifestation all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I do think sometimes there's more to what we're experiencing than.
Have you done it? Have you ever I've done it since the ayahuasca, and have you had anything sort of similar or like that relates to the first time when you had the time with or has it just been a different experience every time?
The first time I went to Peru, I did ayahuasca 3 times then, and they were all very, very powerful and very different. And then I did it a couple of times in Vegas. I did it once in California on an Indian reservation during the day. That was very, very different.
In what way?
Well, partly because it was during the day, and ayahuasca's almost always at night. It always was in my experiences. Second of all, that was a tribal gathering, so there were like 35, 36 people there, kids there just having a tiny sip of the ayahuasca, and that was led by an old a cutman from the UFC, a guy called Weetzelin Mata, Hummingbird Man, which is another coincidence because the place I went to in Peru was Hummingbird. Again. So he was a cut man at the UFC. You probably recognise him if you saw a photo. He used to have a big green jade head on a necklace around his neck. And I just knew him as a cut man, you know. And so he'd wrap my hands a couple of times or whatever. Anyway, I got talking to him and I went out to do this ceremony with him. And he was the leader of the ceremony. He was the shaman. And so I was there all day, did this really long ceremony where people are walking around with didgeridoos and fucking really, really unusual sounds. And then that night we did a sweat lodge. And that was very, very unusual as well. Because you've still got the ayahuasca in your system. It's a full moon. And we've got there's this pit outside the sweat lodge where they've got these big volcanic boulders, and they're all, you know, make a bonfire over them. So you put 3 boulders in the middle of the sweat lodge and pour water all over them, and you're in there in your underwear holding this big bunch of herbs that anytime you start to feel nauseous, you just have to keep smelling them just to kind of bring you back. But we did 3 lots of 15 minutes. First time with 3 rocks, then with 6 rocks, then with 9 rocks. And these rocks were like glowing orange volcanic rocks. And they'd throw this water on and the whole place would steam up and you'd be fucking drenched in sweat and like tripping balls still because you've got the ayahuasca in your system. But that felt far more like strengthening and liberating. Like I remember coming out of the sweat lodge after the 45 minutes and feeling like I was like on fire. Felt incredible, and a lot of the experiences since then have been more about being a protector. That was the reoccurring thing. The first experiences weren't. They were very much about being vulnerable and failing at protecting people. But then the ones after the first time I went to Peru were about being the protector for the people in the ceremony, the protector for the people around me in my life, and that was a reassuring thing for me as well.
Sounds mad, doesn't it? Does it give you what you need at the time, do you think? Is that kind of...
Yeah. It doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
When we go to Peru, we'll have to
do a video vlog of fucking Peru, I think.
Love it.
Make Dan come with us, so me and he'll end up dead, I swear.
We need someone to guide us, that's for sure. It's not going to go well otherwise.
How long after... So obviously they've hit you with the news about your art, you've kind of, like you said, you've lost yourself a little bit, or you've come to terms in your head, right, like, what am I going to do? How long after that then did you find out that you could actually fight again if you wanted to? Because there was a time when you were working for the UFC, there was talks of you coming back, and I remember like you saying about you'd want to fight that interests you, like a Nick Diaz or someone like that. So how long? What was like the kind of time frame between being hit with the news, but then finding out, oh no, actually they're wrong, I can still crack on?
It was probably about 18 months or a couple of years. After about six months or so, Lorenzo called me into the UFC offices in Vegas. So I went in, and as I arrived at the offices, Dana was there getting out of a Monster Energy's truck outside. And he's like, fucking. I'm like, okay, I'll go and see Lorenzo. It sounds great. So Lorenzo offered me this opportunity to be an ambassador for Europe and to commentate. And that was the point when I was like, okay. Because my mum said something when I was sitting outside the hospital, like not in a good place emotionally. She was like, yeah, but if this hadn't have happened, you would have never have stopped fighting. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm being moved into the next phase of my career. So I was quite accepting of it for the first sort of 12 months. They kept me really busy, you know, doing commentary and going to events and, you know, breakdown shows and stuff. So the first sort of, 18 months of doing that job was busy. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Let me just go and get it checked. So I came to a guy in Bristol, a sports cardiology specialist. And I took my test results from Vegas. He put me through all the tests again. And he was like, you're fine. Like this is a misinterpretation of these results. There was definitely something showing up, but that's partly because you were under stress, you were weight cutting, etc., etc. He said, I can see what they were reading, but you're not in a risk bracket where I would recommend you do anything to it. So that was reassuring. And I passed that information on to the UFC. They threw a couple of names at me, like Joe Lozon, Jim Miller. I'm really interested in either of those because I was looking at 55. I was going to come back at lightweight because welterweights have gotten bigger since I retired. My goodness. And then then they offered me Gilbert Melendez, and I accepted that one. That would have been a fight I would have loved. But then that kind of, it just kind of fell off the table, and things moved very quickly. And I don't know. I mean, the reality is the UFC could have used me far more as a commentator and as an analyst than they could have done if I was fighting. And they probably looked at me and went, well, we've got other welterweights coming through from the UK that have got more potential than you. Let's just kind of keep you where you are, you know? But there were a few times, like in Uruguay, when you thought they wanted to announce that I was coming back, then I said, well, if we're going to announce it, let's do it at the O2 Arena. And then that event was the pandemic one, I think, that was cancelled.
No, Uruguay was August. There's after Brasilia, that was the one that was cancelled.
Yeah, but I think that was what there was an event where they were going to announce that I was going to fight again, but yeah.
To jump like obviously you was such a good analyst for UFC and everything. Whatever happened. PFL have like had a massive capitalization on it now, and obviously signed you to them. Why is like your official role with PFL, and what are your plans kind of going forward? Because I know you're mainly based with like the European side of it, but obviously they've had you out in America and stuff, haven't they, recently? So what is the plan moving forward? Is there any kind of things you want to put in place and maybe not in place now? Is there any ideas you've got that you can say? We don't want to get you in trouble or nothing like that, but but what is your official role, and where do you see what direction do you see the PFL moving in? Because obviously they're making massive moves, like signing Francis, who's now going to fight Tyson Fury. Jake Paul is with him. That's not including all the big stars they've got that are part of the tournaments anyway. So obviously they're growing, they're getting really, really big over in America, and they seem to be getting a lot bigger over here as well. Yeah.
So my role within Europe is the director of fighter operations. So within Europe, my job is to scout the talent and sign it, make sure that they're integrated into the PFL system. We get all the information we need off them. They've got all the information that they need off us. And then, matching the events and commentating on them for Europe. My main focus, the thing I want to bring into PFL Europe and PFL Global really is an elevated level of care for the fighters. I learned a lot from working with the UFC, being behind the scenes and kind of understanding the things that the UFC do really, really well and the things that could be improved, from an experience of a fighter being in that system and then the experience of being an ambassador and kind of working alongside them. I'm like, yeah, they do things really well, but I know there are some things that we can do better. So my focus is to elevate the level of care that the fighters are getting, particularly in Europe, and then that will transfer over to global. And then over on the global shows, I'm basically an analyst again. I'm sitting cage side so they've got Kenny Florian, Randy Couture, and Sean O'Connell as the main commentary team. And then I've got my telestrator on my desk, and they've got the big screen that I'm going to do breakdowns on. So they're still trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to fit into that, but bringing more analysis to the broadcast and in a different way that the other guys do it is my focus for the global shows. And then generally PFL Europe. So I want to make sure that there's connection with the grassroots. I want to make sure that fighters that are interested in turning pro, if they're at the right level, that there's an option for them to turn pro on a PFL show. Host amateur fights on PFL shows as well. And then, bring some stability to MMA in Europe. Like, we have lots and lots of good shows in Europe. Of course, Cage Warriors, Aries, Octagon, Hexagon, KSW, LFL's looking really good. They had a show in Amsterdam this weekend. Like, there are a lot of really good shows, but the issue always has been consistency. Even with the UFC, like when the UFC first came over here, well, say not the first time, it was UFC 39, wasn't it? When they came over, was it UFC 85? It was like they hit the ground running and it was just constant. They were over here, we had a presence all the time. And then that kind of started to drift away, and there were a lot of the smaller shows that used to be regular that stopped doing shows because everyone was waiting for UFC tickets. So then the opportunities for the fighters dropped off, and I see the same problem now. Like, I literally, for the Paris card, September 30th, I could have matched it 3 times over. There are so many fighters that are good level fighters that have just got nowhere to compete. Yeah. And it's depressing because I relate to them. I remember being there and feeling like I can't get fights, and this guy's pulled out and blah blah blah, and that's got opportunities gone. I want to create some stability where we've got a minimum of 12 shows in Europe a year, where I'm gathering fighters from across Europe and bringing them in. And then the European focus will then become the Africa focus when Ngannou sets up PFL Africa. We're going to do PFL South America as well. I think South America and Brazil are going to be separate because there's so many fighters in that region. And then, race FOs from Australasia, so no doubt we'll have a league over there as well. And then all of these PFL leagues will then be a feeder show for the main roster. So then you've got 10 fighters on that roster that are the best 10 fighters from all the regions in the world. And then you've got a Champions League. And that's really what we're interested in building. And PFL Europe's the first of those satellite regions to do it.
It's exciting times, isn't it? It's gone from strength to strength, I think. I remember when it was WSOF.
Yeah.
And they still had a similar sort of set. And I quite like is when you watch the PF, it's almost like watching like a basketball game in America on ESPN where you've got like the stats down the side and the news under the bottom. It feels like you're watching. The UFC is like a pay-per-view. Every show reminds me of watching like a pay-per-view boxing card, whereas like the PFL reminds me of like you said, sitting there and watching a sports game every week, and it's like, oh, he's first round knockout, that's 3 points for him. It adds a different factor to it, I think, and
it fits with ESPN and with what people know about sports generally.
What is like, what's so good about it is because it's MMA and anything can happen. The league style format can be like, look at Brendan Loughlin in his last fight. Like I would have bet my house that he was going to win it again this year, and then in the blink of an eye, it's flipped on his head, and now he's not even got a chance to get into the playoffs now. So it is a really exciting format, I think, and it's good to see a different avenue as well, a different option for people aside from your Bellator and your UFC. It's massive. And what's next for you, V? What are you eyeing up? Like, obviously, I know you're not going to fight news yet, but any dates you're aiming for? Anyone you want to fight, or are you just happy to go with the flow?
Yeah, just happy. Hopefully just by the end of the year, so it's not that far in between fights. Just any time by the end of the year, and then hopefully get like 3 next year.
She was desperate for the London card, but that didn't work out. And then she was desperate for the Paris card.
That's so bad.
You know how it is. So like a minor injury will just put you to one side for a minute, so you can't train properly. Yeah. And we're over the days of not getting into the cage ready. We're not doing that. Like she said, I wouldn't let her get in there if she wasn't fully prepared to compete. She's done it too many times before, and the losses on her record are because of those situations. Fighting up a weight class, fighting with a broken arm, maniac, like these kind of things, I'm not saying that we've not made the same mistakes. Of course we have, but we've learned from them. So now she has to learn from my mistakes instead of learning from her own. And Paris just wasn't going to be the right timing.
Like you said, he is the ultimate cheat code.
Yeah. I said like Paris around the house, and like the looks he'd give me, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to
just
fight
change the
Paris.
conversation instantly. Joe, do you want to fight? We got a couple of questions off people on Instagram and Patreon and stuff. So we'll try and keep them as brief as possible, because we've put a good shift here, so I don't want to keep it too long. But
we've kind of answered all the ones actually aimed at you, but there's a couple of like quick fire ones. People want to know who you think will win, Volk or Topuria, if they fight.
I just can't count Volk out against anybody. Topuria is very, very skilled, but you've got to find someone that can at least be competitive with the vast majority of the time in the cage. And right now, I just don't see anybody being able to do that with Volk. That's why he's going Makhachev. I need to go back to Makhachev because he knows these featherweights. He can be polite about it, but he knows he beats them, right? Like we were talking about the Rodriguez fight, and wow, but that switch high kick, it's like, yeah, but it's the seconds that he's going to steal the fight from Volk. Like no one's going to dominate him. You know what I mean? Even Makhachev didn't dominate him.
How did you score the fight with Makhachev?
I thought Makhachev won, but it was, again, I could watch it back 3 times and score it 3 different ways.
Yeah.
It was the crowd were very much on Volk's side. Anytime he was stuck in a position, he's like still trying to hit Makhachev, and he made a point of being the winning fighter in a fight where I felt like he was losing, and I respect to him. And I also think very much that after that first fight, he's going to be way more confident going into the next one that he can do the job and how he gets the job done. for me, Volk is pound for pound right now. I don't see anybody getting anywhere close to him. Even Makhachev. Like if Makhachev went up to welterweight and tries to do the same thing that Volk's doing, he's not beating those guys right now. Do you know what I mean? He's not coming close as Volk did to beating him.
Ngannou Fury.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to pick Ngannou. You know, as much as I would love to see him successful, he's going up against one of the trickiest, tallest, rangiest, most skilled, most savvy, calmest heavyweights that we've ever had. Like, I think he's going to be really problematic trying to get around Tyson's lead hand. I think it's going to be very difficult to judge what he's being walked onto. And the biggest tool for me for Ngannou to watch out for is going to be the rear uppercut. Because I feel like he's going to lunge and he's going to throw big shots over the top, and Tyson's going to control that center channel. Like there's always the possibility when you've got scary power like Ngannou that you're going to catch somebody and you're going to really hurt him. But I respect him more for the risks that he's taking than I give him a chance of winning, if that makes sense.
My 20 pence on that as well is that I think Wilder is as big a puncher as Ngannou, but also, although he's not the best technical boxer amongst probably the top 4 heavyweights, he's probably still a better technical boxer than Ngannou. And I don't think Ngannou has ever fought, I might be wrong, but weight-wise, yeah, but I don't think he's ever probably fought anyone who is the size of Fury. Like, we see Ngannou as being this massive monster, don't we, in the UFC, and we're like, fucking size of him. But then you look at Tyson again, you know, like, what's Ngannou, 6'5", 6'6", 260 pounds. Then you got Tyson is 6'10", probably 310 pound walking around, and he knows how to use it as well. Then he's I think he does as good as he is skillfully. He doesn't get a lot of credit for how crafty he is in the ring, leaning and holding. And you've seen it in the second Wilder fight. He just took his legs away from him just from leaning on him and walking him down. And I think he's proper found that like Kronk boxing style now, where he's not just a guy that'll dance around. I genuinely think you'll meet Ngannou in the middle, and as much as I'd love to see Francis do it, and I'm over the moon that it's worked out for him, I just don't see how he's going to land that one lucky punch.
No. Still going to watch it, though.
Oh, I'll pay the money to watch it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the reality is, you know, like if Tyson handles him fairly comfortably, it's going to open up his mind to stepping into a different situation, even if it's just a hybrid rules where you can clinch and strike. We had Deontay Wilder the week before Ngannou and Jones faced off at the PFL. We had Deontay Wilder join us on the broadcast, and I made sure we had some 2XL PFL gloves on the table so he could try them on. And like he just puts his hand in them, and you can see his mind. It's going, my goodness, I'm gonna
imagine him cracking him before.
You imagine?
I think people would. I think
Tyson won't get back up.
It'd be serious repercussions. I think if he landed with a fucking glove on.
But he touches people and they go to sleep, doesn't he? It's crazy.
Do you think it'd be a different fight, Fury and Ngannou, if they learn wear MMA gloves?
Yeah, I do. But I also can't underestimate Tyson Fury's ability to fight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's a great boxer, but I would not underestimate his ability to fight. Like, and this is another reason why I feel like Tyson's a tricky person to box, because he is a boxer that can fight. Like, I feel like, and I think they were talking about this on Ariel's show, weren't they? They identified Anthony Joshua as probably the easiest fight, because I feel like they could overwhelm him with aggression. Like, Joshua's like nice and crisp and clean, Olympic style boxer, but he doesn't have someone throwing like bales of hay at him like Ngannou would. He's much better at dealing with people that are either shorter or generally more predictable in their boxing skills. Whereas, and there's no question, if you put Ngannou against Anthony Joshua in a fight, Anthony Joshua struggles. But I feel like Tyson Fury would be decent at MMA as a heavyweight as well.
Yeah.
You know? I know, of course, people are going to say, oh, well, you just, wrap his legs up and take him down. But he's going to learn fast. And he's going to think of things that other MMA fighters won't think of. Like Travis Brown elbows, they might be Tyson Fury elbows. He might be really good at those kind of things. And his dad's got teeth marks, scars all up and down his forearms, and John Fury.
So scary.
Like, they know how to fight. Like, they're not just boxers.
No.
Rightio. This is one off Sash. Given you have been inside two of the biggest MMA organisations on the planet, does that give you sympathy for how hard it is to run a promotion, or do you see like missed opportunities, fighter pay, pensions, healthcare? Controversial one.
Yeah, no, I mean, The thing is, we often forget how young MMA is. You know, we're still trying to learn. We're still trying to figure it out. There's definitely things that we can do better. Definitely things that we could have done better over the years. You know, like, of course, we could have gotten drug testing earlier on and that kind of thing. Like, there was not a lot of drug testing back in the days. And I used to look at people I was fighting, I'm like, yeah, piss into a cup, please. Like, you just, you know, things have changed a lot. I think USADA's done a really good job of, you know, first of all, staying on top of people out of competition time, but also just as a deterrent, that you know at any point they can knock on your door and test you. I think that's a really good deterrent. I do feel like the judging criteria could be improved upon. I do feel like the education of referees, unfortunately, can be improved upon, because like there's no real decent coaching and training around, you know, identifying concussions, you know, and fencing response, which was something I learned about when Jai got knocked out, you know, and Herb was attempting to referee. Like, those moments where I'm like the thing is, look, I very, like I said before, I very much appreciate Herb. He's put in a hell of a shift in mixed martial arts. But in that moment, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. He was exhausted, same as everybody else was. It was the second time that night, you know. And like I said afterwards, like, I didn't know. I know of Jai Herbert, but I don't know Jai. I know him better after the fight than before. But I don't see him on the floor as a fighter that's taken a couple of punches. I see someone's son or someone's, you know, daughter or someone's father or whatever. And they're the moments where I get an anger at the referee, because I want them to be on their game to protect those fighters when they can't protect themselves. Like, that is the most important thing. And there's just a lot of information that's not getting across to officials that would help their understanding of what they're watching and how they better play a role. And as far as fighter pay, of course, that's got to be improved. The only way that's going to be improved, though, is for the sport not to be monopolized, right? Like, if Starbucks is the only person making coffee on the planet, they can charge you what they want. But as long as Costa exists, we've got a fair market, because someone's going to bring the price down, right? Like, same thing here. It's one of the biggest benefits of the PFL, and why I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that it's successful. Because I want an even playing field, a fair playing field, and I want the money going back into the fighters' pockets. Like, on the pay-per-view events, 50% of the pay-per-view revenue goes to the fighters. What is it at the moment for the UFC? 12% or something like that. Like, we've got fighters waiting tables and driving Ubers and shit. Come on.
It summed it up when I heard Mayweather talking about it years and years ago about his pay-per-view cut, and he's like, he even gets cuts of the drink sales and the food sales and the merchandise sales. He's like, you know, and then it just makes you wonder. And he's like, all that took really for that to explode and everyone else had done was just for one guy like him to back himself. So, you know, it almost makes you think if a couple of the top dogs were kind of like, well, you see a couple of them have done it, that they've started to move in that direction, haven't they? Yeah. And we got to give, I think, credit to Conor McGregor as well, because I always remember when he was going to fight Diaz the second time, and they wasn't going to give Diaz what he wanted, and he kind of like come forward and was like, just fucking just give him what he wants. Like, we got to make the fight happen. And he's almost like an advocate for fight to pay without trying to be an advocate for fight to pay, because of the money he pulls in, and he's people are now very aware of what he's getting and cuts of the pay-per-view he's getting. I think, like you said, if there's a couple of big names and a couple of big promotions, people start to think, well, they're doing it, why can't we do it? Or Conor's doing it, and Masvidal's doing it, and you know, it is definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, more than anything, for me, I feel like we don't need $600 million in one person's account. We need a few $100,000 in loads and loads of people's accounts, because one day you're going to not fight anymore, and I hope, certainly, selfishly, that you get into coaching. Yeah. Because I think you're going to be a fucking great coach. But if you don't have the money to go, well, let me set up a gym and let me get this business started, and let me, you know, like, you're going to have to pay for your own travel around, because these fighters are getting a few $100s for fights. Like, I want fighters to have the ability to invest back into the sport when they're done. You know, and even if that's something else I'm going to start doing with the PFL as well, I'm going to start linking fighters that are coming towards the end of their career with jobs in judging and refereeing and like even training how to wrap hands and be a cut person. You know, these are all really valuable jobs that someone needs to do, and I would much rather someone that's been in those shoes that can step into that dressing room, that warm up space, and not think it's all about them. You know what I mean? Be there for the fighter to do their job. The best people to do that are people that have already.
Yeah, I think an ex-fighter will always make a good referee, like we was talking about earlier, wouldn't it?
Like Frank Trigg's a good referee. We have Shaolin Vitor Ribero's a referee now. We have good people, good fighters that could be judges as well. Like, a lot of fighters are super intelligent, really smart. Like, look at Rich Franklin. He was a maths teacher, right? He went and won the UFC middleweight title, and then he's over, helping run one championship. They're the kind of circumstances that we need. And they're the people that will go, you know what, I'll take this amount of money that's fair for me, but let's make sure that these people get that fair amount as well. Like Ngannou, arguing for $2 million for his.
I was just going to say, like, that was the maddest part of the entire deal, that
love it.
He's going to have this multi-million-pound payday, but he was like, yeah, but the guy I'm fighting needs to have this. And it's like, that's what we need. Because we're never going to get a union, I don't think. I don't think we're ever going to get a fighter union. We just need a couple of the big names to kind of be like, let's just have a bit more fair play, and let's let it, like you said, rather than it all go to the top, let's just let it have that trickle-down effect where, all right, the guy at the top may make 15 million instead of 20 million, but that other 5 million filters down nicely.
Exactly that. We've got to speculate to accumulate, you know, and to accumulate, we need to keep growing the sport. We need to make sure people have got the money to invest back into it. Like the idea of like coming to the end of your fight career and not having any money to go into another business that you're not basically working for somebody else is quite depressing, I think. And I don't think it's a good look for the organisations either to have someone that's starting a GoFundMe because they're coming to their last fight and they don't want a job at Walmart, you know? Yeah. Like, it's, progress is needed, but we're moving in that direction.
You think to yourself, don't you, if they can, like, have all these basketball teams they can play, I don't even know how many people play on a basketball team, but they can pay them X amount of thousand to play it week in, week out. I mean, fighting's so much more exciting. I'm sure it's going to be a bigger sport than that in like 10 years.
For sure.
And there's so much less people involved in it. Like you look, like you said, the NBA, how many teams in the NBA, and then look at how many players are on each team and how many reserves are on the team as well, the players, and they're all getting paid mental money. And there's no way the fighting doesn't draw in quite as much, but I can't imagine it's a million miles away. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And one other thing to consider as well is, like, when you've got these elite level athletes, and this probably worked out good for me, to be honest, because if they'd have been in the sport around my time, I would have been filtered out much sooner. But like, there are athletes that are in college right now in the US that are coming to the stage where they're going, well, I could go to the NFL or I could do MMA. They're never going to make that decision to come to MMA because the money on the table in the NFL is so much higher. So we're almost getting the athletes that didn't make it elsewhere. Like, I mean, no offense by this, but Ovin St. Prue's a good example of that, in my opinion. I don't really think he likes fighting, right? I think if you gave him another sport to play, which was football or lacrosse or whatever else he did, that he enjoyed more, I think he would have been better at it, you know? But because they weren't options, like there's wrestlers that are, well, I'm not going to make it to the Olympics. What are my options? I'm either going to be a high school coach or I'm going to fight MMA. You know, we want those people to go, once I've done with this, I'm going to go to MMA as a choice, you know?
That's what my dad always says about the heavyweights in the UK, because everyone says, how come there's not many heavyweights about? He's like, because they're all playing rugby.
Exactly.
Because they can go and play for a rugby team and make 500 grand, £1 million a year, and in 10 years' time when they retire, they'll be financially made. He said, there's not many of them. In America, it's basketball or American football, and it's not always a first option. You know what I mean? Someone like Francis, who it was his only option. But even Francis wanted to box first, but then realised he had to, you know. So, like you say, I think more money, more opportunities for after fighting as well. It definitely will bring, like you said, the better athletes into the sport, because you look at like the NFL and even rugby over here, some of the athletes they got there, you think if you could just teach some of them how to fight.
Exactly that.
Even local guys, aren't they, playing on the weekends in like the towns around here? Some of them are getting a couple of £1,000 a month to play rugby. No one's ever heard of them. It's mad.
And you look at them and you think to yourself, you could have a light heavyweight title in the UK in like 6 months if I trained you.
Yeah, if you just do 2 sessions a day for 6 months.
Yeah.
No, that's a good place to wrap it. Dan, thanks for coming on. Veronica, thanks for coming. look forward to the PFL Dublin card and to the big announcement. Well, everyone else we know it, but everyone else knows the big announcement on Sunday. And we hope you enjoy your stay in Wales and enjoy the Four Nations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Great
guys.
talking to you both.